Howdy, it's Angela. So we're going to get right into this one. And it's kind of personal, and it's kind of starting to piss me off. Welfare is enslavement. Democrats say they're doing this for the poor, they're doing that for the poor. That's enslavement. And you know what? It doesn't just affect black community. Yes, it's disproportionate, but that doesn't mean the rest of us who went through extreme poverty or household abuse or whatever the case may be, and I can go on a laundry list and I will in a moment, that doesn't mean that we are affected any less. It doesn't mean our pain is any less. Stop marginalizing our pain. Pain is pain, man. So let's focus on the issue and not the gender or the race or the class. Okay, again, this is personal. A good chunk of my family members are on welfare. I have no respect for the welfare system. I think it's disgusting, and it's only sort of festered and gotten larger over the years. And that's because the bureaucracy exists to expand the bureaucracy. It's got to stay alive. So you get more and more people working for the government, you get more and more people on the payrolls. So you get more and more people dependent on the government in both ends, both for the welfare side and for the administration side. It requires more and more of a machine. So they do it to everybody. And I grew up in New Hampshire. It was like 99% white. When you look at our disparity charts and whatnot, we have one of the lowest in the country. So no, I don't see black people as any different or any less. And that brings me to something I didn't understand. Back when we first started going to tea parties and when I was working for Glenn and people started calling me a racist, and I would say, like many of us would, some of my best friends are black. What are you talking about? It didn't even occur to me that they were any different than me. And they said, that's no excuse. What do you mean excuse? Excuse for what? I'm not asking for an excuse. And they were telling me I was a racist. Again and again and again. And it didn't make any sense to me. And it only just now clicks when we start the Antifa thing and the Black Lives Matter stuff is starting to bring it into perspective. They said I was a racist because when I said I had black friends, because they looked down on their own black friends. They're the racist. It didn't occur to me. It just the notion was so foreign to me that it didn't pop into my head. And you want to know what? I wasn't raised to think that black people were any better or worse than me. I have family on welfare. A good chunk of my family's on welfare. I've talked about them. Welfare fraud, one of them. Welfare fraud. Others stealing checks from their kids, others, making their kids go to work at 14 years old and pay rent while they're getting a Section 8, while they're getting food stamps, while they're getting child support. We've got others who, they're drug addicts, all my mother, as many of you know, my mother OD'd and died. My mother OD'd and died on an assortment of pain medications. I think it was Demerol. Well, maybe not Demerol. I think there was some Oxy. I know that there was some methadone. She also had beer. She lived alone in this little hole of a place. My mother, who used to be an extremely, professional, successful woman for a very young age, and especially for somebody who had a daughter at 16 years old. My mother was very, very successful. She worked for a company called Digital, who's, gone out of business. They were a competitor, I suppose, to IBM in the 80s and 90s. They, for whatever reason, didn't stick around. My mother didn't handle that well, but her issues go well beyond that. My mother, however, never went on welfare. She had too much pride. And it wasn't really a thing because I was born in 73. Welfare was only just starting to become a thing if you think about when the bills were all passed for it. So it wasn't really a thing back then. It started to become a thing. All my cousins, they're having kids at, one cousin, we won't use names, in his mid-20s is impregnating a 14-year-old. They were doing ecstasy. My cousin was the dealer to her mom, and they all did ecstasy at her house because she was okay with the kids doing drugs as long as, they were in her house and she could keep an eye on them. And she was letting her daughter screw her adult drug dealer. My other aunt did something very similar. She thought that she was basically going to whore my cousin out because to some guy who his family was rich. This guy was a cokehead beyond belief. Yes, his family has money. So what? She was okay with it. She was okay with her daughter at 16 years old, sleeping with a 28-year-old cokehead who still lived with his mom and dad because he couldn't. Gets better. They've asked me, I've mentioned this before. They've asked me to sell them or to give them my drugs so they could sell them for money. They come around looking for money. I was in a residential when I was in high school. I went to foster care and then I was in a residential. And my aunt would come down and she would be the one who would drive me to and from New Hampshire. I didn't have anything to do with my parents, not really for years. I didn't see my parents pretty much in high school at all, a couple times. My aunt would come down from New Hampshire down to my residential in the Boston area, and she would ask for money for gas, which was fine because we were all supposed to get X amount of money to go home. Some of us obviously got more. The girls who took the train into inner city Boston, they had train money. I had to get bus money or gas money. She would ask, this was in 1990, she would claim that she needed about $30 round trip for a Datsun to pick me up and bring me home. And she always needed more. It was horrible. It was humiliating. She's not a Karen, though. I have another aunt who's a Karen. Anyways, I don't see black people as different because I grew up with some of the worst people I've ever met. I just don't see it that way. So when you keep people on welfare, though, that's who they become. They become the welfare fraud people. They become the entitled people. They become the people who do nothing. And I was chatting with somebody on Parler today who said that this happened to his tribe. You take away the people's soul. You take away their drive, their initiative. You give them just enough money to survive. Not enough money to rise up because that's not nope, can't do that. And not enough money to starve, I guess, if they treat them, if they spend their money right. But they can't get ahead. And that is pervasive with the lower class. It's not, and they're, by the way, they keep raising the poverty level to give people more and more food stamps and more aid and free school lunches and stuff like that. You can get 300% income of poverty line and get free lunch. That's absurd. Absurd, especially when you have like one kid. That's ridiculous. There's a number of things that they do to make sure you stay dependent on the system. And that kills the soul. It's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's not... And when you marginalize us and divvy us up, you say, because I'm white, my pain isn't as important as this marginalized black community. But over here, you've got Asian people who work their asses off and are often very poor, but their culture has them moving forward and not looking for welfare usually. They make something of themselves. And they are marginalized and ridiculed, like at Harvard, because they're not interesting enough. It's not about being interesting. It's about merit. You go to college to learn, and yes, you have the interactions. That's great. But you don't disqualify somebody who is clearly far more qualified over a mediocre student just because of skin color. That's racism through and through, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting that the court in Massachusetts let it go. Stop dividing us. Stop making welfare a black thing. Stop making black people the only marginalized people. We've all been marginalized. And what they're doing is bread and circuses. They give you the money, they give you everything you need, and you stay giving them the power. What the welfare system does... 1, 2, 3. What the welfare system does is rob America's lower income, lower class citizens of the American dream. It's really remarkable, isn't it, that we can have people coming over here from any country. Name a country. Name a country. We can have people coming over from India, Pakistan, Ireland, and it's been this way since the dawn of the United States. We can have people coming over from any country with pennies in their pocket, from Cuba, from escaping communism, Russia, South America, coming here and making something of themselves. The only people that think they can't make something of themselves are people who are told that they're victims every day. I wasn't told I was a victim. I was told I was lucky. That's the difference. That's where the institutional racism is. We forgot to tell black kids to be proud of America and to celebrate not just black history, but all history. And to not forgive the sins of America, but learn from those evil, horrible mistakes. Wear your scars with pride. When you fell down as a little kid, you used to get a boo-boo and a scar, and later on you go, oh yeah, I got this one. And those are who you are. A notch in a tree, those things that happen, we can't live in the perpetual now. And that's what they've done. That's what they've done to black people. They've had them in the perpetual now. They live in a world of the 60s of oppression, because we have boomers, yeah, boomers, who, some of them, bless them for what they did, like with, Jim Clyburn, all of those people marching with Dr. King. But you stand for this violence in the name of Black Lives Matter? That's a lie. That's a lie. You're just a freaking political hack now. So what's the institutional racism is the hopelessness that you give the black community. The hopelessness. You let them off the hook. You take their fathers away. And then you say you're going to give them more help by giving them more government. Uncle Sam, I've said it before, is a terrible stepfather. I didn't have that problem so much as in the black community. I don't know about other communities. I do know friends. I do watch things. I've studied this a lot, guys. Speaking of which, like, share, subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Again, I don't need money. I just want to help grow the channel because I think conservative moms need a voice. I don't like what they're teaching our children. I don't like that they are treating the pain level or the trauma level of individual children based on their freaking skin color differently. You don't prioritize. You don't do that. That's sick. I have complex PTSD. It's from prolonged abuse. What we're doing to our children in the black community when you give them no hope and tell them they're victims, that's abuse. When you tell white kids it's their fault, that's abuse. When you tell Hispanics that they are just spicks in our eyes, that's abuse. When you tell Asians that they're not interesting and to get over there and not talk and not engage, that's abuse. We're not supposed to be hyphenated Americans. We are supposed to blend. Stop dividing us by class. Get your head right. Anyways, guys, I'm Angela. Thanks. This one was kind of personal. It really is, because I grew up with some of the worst of the worst. Some of the worst. The only difference was I didn't believe in myself, trust me. I never lost hope, and I believed in the American dream. What a gift that was for me. That's the institutional racism as far as I can tell. And it's really it's really sad. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Angela out.